And good afternoon. Welcome to We Believe Digital Studios. Chris Young with you today for our twice-a-week news break show, Wednesdays and Fridays from 12 to 12:30. Glad to have you joining us. 93 degrees, heading for a forecast 95 degrees here in Jackson today. I think yesterday the forecast was for 96 and it wound up right at 100. So another scorching day. Just the very tiniest forecast possibility of rain, like 10%. So we'll get started off. I think I got 24 different stories to share with you today. So we'll just get rolling. In Jackson and Hines, had a terrible fire. One person killed, two others injured during a Jackson apartment fire. This was on Thursday, yesterday. Fire happened at the Lakeview Manor Apartments. According to Jackson Fire Department Assistant Chief Patrick Arman, crews tried to resuscitate the victim, but she did not respond. So tough situation. Don't know the circumstances of the fire or anything, but got that from WJTV. And also, take a minute if you can, visit Mississippi.com or visit Mississippi.org. All kinds of activities going on. There's a Washington edition gala, one of the older neighborhoods, and walking back through history. There's an event going on. Of course, you got that the big rodeo, not the black rodeo that was a couple weeks ago, but you got the big rodeo going on over at the fairgrounds this weekend, tonight and tomorrow night. Also, over at the two museums this weekend, Solidarity Now, 1968 Poor People's Campaign, explores one of the most important grassroots movements of the civil rights era, the Poor People's Campaign of 1968. So the investigates the factors that made the movement a success, the ideas, the emotions, the people, and the place. Resurrection City. They have a moving, an exhibit, a moving combination of photographs, objects, videos, and oral histories. And it drew thousands of people to develop a protest community on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. 1968, a call to the nation's attention to the crippling effects of poverty for millions of Americans. So that's going on over at the two museums. But just a little reminder, on Sundays it's free. I want to say from 11 to 4 on Sundays they're open. They're closed on Mondays, but 11 to 4 or 11 to 5 on Sundays, free admission. Sad news from the Mississippi Mass Choir, which originated in Jackson, just recently lost its longtime founding member, Rachel Dolores Curry, after an extended illness, according to the Mississippi Mass Choir. Curry's death on this past Saturday at the age of 64 has drawn many heartfelt messages and condolences on Facebook. Talking Jackson State football here for a minute. The SWAC Athletic Conference Media Day on Tuesday was a homecoming party this past Tuesday. It was about the SWAC family getting together before the season begins. For the first time in 3 seasons, Florida A&M is the preseason favorite to win the East in the SWAC. Jackson is looking to three-peat as SWAC champion, something it has not done since winning 4 straight from 1985 through 1988. And there's a substantial article on that in the Clarion Ledger. If you want to take a look at that. There's also some indications that some people feel as if T.C. Taylor may well be a better, more rounded coach than Dion was. So take a minute and look that up, and it won't be long before we're playing football. The sad thing about this season, the first 4 games are away games. So that's tough for a lot of people going to be doing a lot of traveling. and the team, of course. So we know when they're week 5 of the season, when they get back here to Jackson, we know the stadium going to be sold out. Skipping to the broader Mississippi news picture, still no Republican-led hearings on the TANF scandal. You know, they got the Neshoba County Fair going on up there, and nobody talking about it except the Democratic challenger, Brandon Presley. None of the Republicans bringing up that this TANF scandal, where Republican-led administrations scoffed up nearly $100 million intended for the poorest Mississippians, got funneled away to pet projects. I was reading a report yesterday about some of the things that were paid for, the travel, the first-class airfare. Imagine first-class airfare to go to welfare, to go to rehab in Malibu, California. You go into rehab and you going on first-class airfare courtesy of TANF dollars. Now, how do you make your brain understand something like that? It's just baffling. In another story that's, really related, Phil Bryant, former Mississippi governor, much of this happening during his time in office. We've seen the text messages, we've seen the clips and all, and now he's suing the local news organization, claiming it defamed him, that a news organization defamed him when, I love how they use the word misspending. You got to really dumb it down. Misspending, $77 million, and he said he was defamed by the news organization. Lawsuit comes just 2 months after Mississippi Today and one of its reporters, who I've met, a really amazing young woman, just 28 or 29 years old, just a beast when it comes to this investigative reporting, Anna Wolf, who won a Pulitzer for her coverage of the welfare misspending. The news outlet story announcing that honor is one example of where the former governor says he was defamed. Bryant's attorney filed a complaint Wednesday in the Circuit Court of Madison against the outlet's CEO, Mary Margaret White, and Deep South Today, the nonprofit that owns Mississippi Today. And former Governor Phil Bryant, he's seeking a jury trial up there in Madison County. So you know what he's counting on, and he talk about, he's going to find 12 people to sit on a jury in Madison County, and he's going to roll the dice, see if he can get them to rule in favor that he was defamed by these comments and news reports. Another story in Mississippi election officials cannot prevent people with disabilities from seeking assistance to vote absentee or by mail in the upcoming August 8th party primary election or in the November general election. Believe me, they're trying to prevent people. But a temporary restraining order was issued Wednesday by U.S. Judge Henry Wingate of the Southern District of Mississippi, and said the so-called ballot harvesting ban passed in by the 2023 legislature would be a violation of federal laws designed to ensure that people with disabilities and those who cannot read or write have equal access to the ballot. Wingate wrote in his order, temporary restraining order, when questioned by this court, defendants, now these are state officials, were unable to provide any data illustrating whether Mississippi has widespread ballot harvesting problem. This is just one of the things that this Republican majority does. They throw these words out there about security and election integrity and ballot harvesting, and we're going to secure the vote. And there's no real evidence, as we're hearing right now from Judge Wingate, there's no real evidence of that going on. But see, they just spook the people. They scare the people, and in hopes that they can limit the voting. and it's typically racially targeted. And that's in the DNA of Mississippi. Just anything to make things work in the white majority favor. Another thing going on, there's a new survey of counties in Mississippi and an analysis of jail dockets in Mississippi, which don't have any laws about putting people in jail without being accused of a crime. And this is really focused on mental illness and addiction issues. Found that people going through civil commitment process for mental illness are regularly jailed as they await evaluation and treatment. Even when they haven't been charged with a crime yet, some counties routinely hold such people in jail. People awaiting treatment for mental illness and for substance abuse, held in jail without charges. At least 2,000 times this has happened from 2019 to 2022 in 19 counties alone in Mississippi, sometimes for days and weeks. The report says nationally, Mississippi is a stark outlier. Mississippi Today and ProPublica joined forces to conduct a nationwide survey of disability advocacy organizations and state agencies that oversee behavioral health. None described anything close to the scale of what's happening in Mississippi. Bad mojo. We're always telling you about the hospital situation in Mississippi and curtailing of services, canceling services outright. Here's a story from Mississippi Today. Almost half of Mississippi's rural hospitals could close, according to a new updated report. The report from the Center for Healthcare Quality and Payment Reforms shows 34 of Mississippi's 74 rural hospitals are struggling financially and at risk of closure. 25% of those are at risk of closing immediately or within the next couple of years. The previous version of the report, which the organization updates every 3 months, showed 27. So now we've gone from 27 to 34 hospitals at risk of closure, rural hospitals, with 20 at risk of immediate closure. All while we won't expand Medicaid, which greatly covers the hospital's uncompensated cost of care when people come in, and that would be deferred by the federal government. But that's just one of the many reasons to expand Medicaid, but we're not talking about that. And they're not talking about that up there at the Neshoba County Fair, from everything I've heard, again, with the exception of Brandon Presley. Some more sad news. We know stuff. We know stuff in our bones. We kind of know stuff. But then when you see it in print, oh my gosh, end up getting shocked sometimes, even when you just knew that you knew it, but when you see it in print. But per the Mississippi Link newspaper, 5.5% of contracts with the state go to minority firms. Now, there are 41.2% of Mississippi's population are minorities, 41.2%. And 5.5% of contracts with the state go to minority firms. Now, if that's not enough of a sin for you, you better sit down for this one here. In Mississippi, for decades now, white women that control at least 51% of a business can be classified as minorities. And in fiscal year 22, based on a minority participation report provided to the Mississippi Link newspaper by our Senator John Horn, 67% of the total dollars that went to minority contracts went to white women. 67%. Black men in the state of Mississippi received 4.04% of those dollars, of those contracting dollars, 4.04%. I don't know if you can think of anything more sad when we're the poorest state in the nation, when we're the heaviest black population of any state per capita in the nation, and the black male contractors get 4.04%. Female contractors a bit more than that, but black male contractors 4.04%. Just sinful behavior, and they wonder why we're last in everything. Maybe they just don't care that we're last in everything. So that's all we have for you on the Mississippi front. Be sure to pick up at the newsstand a Mississippi Link newspaper and check that out. Lots of great articles in the paper this week on the newsstands as of yesterday. Hopefully there'll still be some in your local newsstand today. Be sure to pick one up. So we're going to drop out now for a couple commercials. We'll be right back with you.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, Keepers of the Knowledge for People Who Speak the Truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippi.com and click on Home Delivery.
And welcome back, everybody, to We Believe Digital Studios and the We Believe Digital News Break. Glad to be with you today. Just catching up with some comments in the chat. Longtime listener, Chris Williams. He wants to know how Governor Bryant can say it's defaming when they showed his text messages. And then, of course, you remember a portion of his text messages seemed to disappear. So interesting. And yes, the closing of the hospitals and shutting down mental health services. And also remember that NICU over in South Jackson closed down. Now, supposedly Merit Health is supposed to be opening a new 50-bed hospital in Jackson later this summer. So we'll see if that comes to pass. It's planned for 20 adult beds. These are mental health beds. 20 adult, 20 child and adolescent, and then 10 substance abuse. So we're really hurting for that now because they're deferring patients out of the area all the time, and we're the biggest medical area in the state. Just crazy. Skipping down to or up to however you want to look at it to the national news picture. A story out of Kenosha, Wisconsin. The family members for Travis King. Remember, Travis King is the U.S. soldier who who just took off running, crossed into North Korea. The family said that on Wednesday they're suffering every moment. He remains away and pleaded with the U.S. government to do more to get him home, of course. It's a really tough situation, with North Korea as far as negotiating and so forth. It's been a little more than a week since Private Second Class King joined a private tour group. He had been brought over to the airport to fly back to Fort Bliss, Texas, apparently to face more disciplinary charges or maybe a discharge. Not sure. And he got away from that area and joined a private tour group that was visiting the DMZ. So That's what separates North and South Korea. And then he made a mad dash into North Korea. King is believed to have been taken, this comes from NBC News, King was believed to have been taken into North Korea custody after crossing the border. A United States Forces Korea spokesperson has said. The family says, quote, "The days are getting longer, the nights are worse." That's from a Private King's sister, Jaquita Gates, 27 years old, told NBC News at their grandparents' home in Kenosha. "All I can think about is what he can be doing." Just a sad, sad situation. Not a good decision by that young man on that day. That's for sure. You can't imagine how this is going to have a positive ending. But certainly we pray that it will. Another story, the President Joe Biden signs an executive order today, scheduled to sign this order today to implement reforms which have been passed by Congress that the White House says will, quote, significantly strengthen how the military handles sexual assault cases. Instead of military commanders making key decisions in cases of sexual assault, domestic violence, murder, and other serious offenses, the executive order transfers that authority to specialized independent military prosecutors, the White House said in a release detailing the changes. The order amends the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, to implement the changes passed by Congress in an annual defense policy bill for fiscal year 2022. The White House described the shift as representing the most significant transformation of the military justice system since the military justice framework was established in 1950. So surely this is going to bring more fairness and more equity to those cases. All too often, one sexual assault is too many, but the truth is the numbers in the military are just staggering, and they don't seem to be getting better over time. They seem to be getting worse. And so hopefully that will be a great improvement to that process and get some severe punishments handed out to offenders and can hopefully lead to less of that going on. Let's hope and pray. Crazy story here about a man fishing. His name is Anthony Gibson, Gibson. 3 times in one day, Anthony Gibson was asked by a white person what he was doing sitting by a pond in his neighborhood in Newnan, 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 Georgia. I don't know if you guys heard about this story, but it just really jumped out at me. He said another white person came and bothered me while I'm fishing, Gibson said in a July 11th TikTok post. His TikTok, just in case you want to scratch it down and take a look, I got a feeling is going to be very informative. It's at Fishing Bay, then the number 2, then the letters GA. Fishing Bay 2 GA. Gibson, who is black and documents his experiences fishing for catfish, carp, crappies, and other fish on the social media platform, said he has started videotaping every time one of the white residents of his 200 home development, Springwater Plantation, confronts him, asking him. They want to know his address. They want to know, do he live there? So questioning whether he should be there. He told NBC News that he soon learned that he wasn't the only black resident in the community to be confronted by white neighbors. Just absolutely. I mean, the man is not partying. He's not smoking. He's not drinking. He's not causing a ruckus. He got his fishing pole in a pond in the neighborhood that he lives in. And he's got to be questioned by these entitled white people. He has not done nothing wrong whatsoever. Totally entitled to what he's doing. And but he gets questioned because of the color of his skin and the color of his skin only. It's not black people questioning him. It's not Asian people. It's white people questioning him. God help these people and what it's going to take to get them to open their eyes. Story out of Iowa. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, the only black Republican in the Senate. Think that one through. The only black Republican in the Senate. 100 senators in the Senate. Just one of them black. And rebuked Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Thursday for public school standards that teach that some black people benefited from slavery. So we've heard all this story, horrible story, claiming that, you know, slavery taught slaves skills that could later benefit them. Just absolutely off the wall, unhinged fiction. And Tim Scott says, as a country founded upon freedom, the greatest deprivation of freedom was slavery. There is no silver lining in slavery, he said. You know, and like DeSantis said here in response to a reporter's question after a forum with Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds. You know, they're all over there trying to get name recognition and stuff over in Iowa. But he said what slavery was really about was separating families, about mutilating humans, and even raping their wives. It was just devastating, Scott said. So I would hope that every person in our country, and certainly running for president, would appreciate that. People have bad days. Sometimes they regret what they say, and we should ask them again to clarify their positions. Interesting way to respond. Tim Scott, way to go. We share with you Wednesday and on Monday night, I believe, about that horrible story in Ohio. The young man driving the tractor trailer pulled over, mud flap. He had a missing mud flap, and he got pulled over and got attacked by a police dog in Ohio as he was trying to surrender. Said at first he was afraid for his life. He was in fear, and that initially kept him from stopping his vehicle. Because you see all these white police officers chasing after him. A mud flap. So the story goes on to say, quote, he told Tom Lamas of NBC News, I just don't want to lose my life or lose my arm, Jadarius Rose told NBC News. Rose was 23, had his hands up. He had called 911. Had his hands up when the dog attacked him after the vehicle pursuit July 4th, according to an Ohio State Patrol report and body camera video. Body camera video appeared to show a highway patrol officer yelling to the Circleville police officer, do not release the dog, with his hands up. The young man was surrendering. He got over his fear enough to stop the vehicle, got out with his hands up, no kind of weapon or nothing like that. And a state trooper on the scene by that time yelling at the local cop, don't do that. Don't release that dog. His hands are up. But the guy did it anyway. So the officer, Ryan Speakman, has been fired by the police department on Wednesday. The Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association said that Speakman had been terminated without just cause and that a grievance has been filed. Well, of course it has. U.S. gas prices hit an 8-month high Thursday. All kinds of stuff behind rising oil prices. National average for a gallon of regular climbed to $3.71 a gallon, according to AAA, 18 cents higher than the week before, and the highest since the month of November. We thought we saw it even dip down a little bit lower, just seemed like a month ago, but now it's right back up there again. In 16 states, gas prices are up by at least 15 cents in the past week alone. And they're talking about this based on the OPEC nations raising the price of oil and also limiting the sale of oil. So it's going to be a long, expensive rest of the summer, it looks like. Justice Department investigating Memphis police's use of force and possible discriminatory policing. Federal officials also are going to develop guidelines. You got to tell these people what to do. Feds developing guidelines for police chiefs and mayors for when to create specialized units, like the one involved in the brutal beating of Tyree Nichols, a black man, in January. Nichols died 3 years later. Bronny James out of the hospital, resting comfortably at home. The son of NBA legend LeBron James been released from the hospital. Cardiac arrest on last Monday, released from the hospital yesterday. Doctors at Cedars-Sinai credited the quick attention he received at the University of Southern California practice court on Monday, and they had a defibrillator on hand, and they did the right thing. So good for them, and wishing Bronny good luck. They say he's one of the absolute top NBA prospects already, that his game really elevated in the last couple of years. Plan to be a freshman at USC this year. On the global news, Joe Biden dispatched National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan to Saudi Arabia. Want to try and get Saudi Arabia and Israel to get along better. Looking for normalization of relations. That's what the visit's all about. We'll see if it can bear any fruit. Saudi Arabia wants to see Palestine as a independent, freestanding state. Israel not too keen on that, so we'll see how that goes. China increasingly barring people from leaving the country. So if you got any plans where you're heading to China, please think twice. They've got these bans going on barring people from leaving the country, including foreign executives. A jarring message as the authorities say the country is open for business after a severe lockdown for 3 years with COVID. Scores of Chinese and foreigners have been installed in exit bans, according to a new report by the human rights group Safeguard Defenders. While a Reuters analysis has found a apparent surge in court cases involving such bans in recent years, and foreign business lobbies are voicing concern about the trend. So they want to be the greatest business power in the world, but they're not letting people leave when they get over there. First 3 weeks of July have been so warm that it's almost certain this month will become the hottest ever recorded, the month of July. That's according to the World Meteorological Organization announcement made on yesterday. We only got a couple more days in the month. Last month was the hottest June ever recorded. Just really, really scary. Record-breaking temperatures, part of the trend of drastic increases in global temperature, according to Carlo Butempo, the director of the Copernicus Climate Change Service said in a news release, adding that human-caused emissions are the main driver of rising temperature. And I guess the last story, or next to the last story, we're getting there. We're kind of out of time, but let me just, Putin promised African leaders, he's lacking support, and he's trying to get leaders from Africa to support him in this war against Ukraine. He's offering them free grain. So he pulled out of the grain deal, putting the hurt on the whole planet with regard to grain moving through the Black Sea, which is a big deal. And now he's seeking support from African leaders, announcing going to give them 25 to 50,000 tons of free grain to Somalia, Burkina Faso, Eritrea, Zimbabwe, Central African Republic, and Mali. And he's going to deliver it to them too, just so they'll support him. All right, so why don't we go ahead and wrap it up there, and I'll add those two stories at some other point. And we do want to share with you, we're going to be out next week. I got I have to roll out to get up to Virginia next week on Wednesday, so we won't plan on having this show Wednesday or Friday of next week, but we'll be back on the air the following week, and just want to let you know that up front. Thank you for supporting the program and joining in. I see Mr. Lewis, I see Mr. Williams, and we're happy to be here for you at We Believe Digital. If there's anything we could do to help serve you and help serve the community, please let us know. You can always call 1-800-492-5186 and talk to somebody about We Believe Digital Studios. Thank you. Have a great weekend.